There's always a time when I'm not really wondering what is going on because I know that I'm Brodor, and this is Why We Game. This episode's guest is Desiree Vaughn, founder of Dream Ultra Big LLC and creator of Dub This. Let's see what other crazy stuff. She's a musician, an educator, an innovator, and a lover of all things that bring joy and positive energy. How are you today, Desiree?
I am feeling great. Thank you for that introduction, by the way. It was a lot of energy there, so I can feed off of that. Yes, I'm feeling great. Excited to be here and share more about my dream, my goals, my passion, and Dub This.
So are you an extrovert?
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I could tell during the pre-interview that you have a tremendous energy. We'll get into it a little bit more, but when you were talking about being an educator, I just thought you must be a delight in the classroom for your students.
Yes, I had a phenomenal time in the classroom. For a while, I taught second grade for 3 years, and then I jumped into fourth grade for 3 years. So I kind of got the best of the younger group, the older group, but it was always a joy learning from my students and taking that journey with them from the beginning of the year to the end, and just discussing topics and hearing their ideas. They're brilliant, and I think oftentimes we don't take time to listen to our kids, but we should because they know more than us on many things. So, yeah, an awesome time. They, gave great energy, and it was always something I could feed off of.
You probably had, I'm going to say that you were a little column A and a little column B. That one, you rarely had disciplinary issues because you were fun and engaging. And then the rare times that you did, you could not bring down the hammer, but you had a way of people understanding the wisdom and feeling truly ashamed of acting up. Am I in the neighborhood?
I would say it was a mix of both, to be honest, because, being a newer teacher, right, there are some things that I was trying to figure out my teaching style, right? Warm, but also assertive, like there's a way we're going to do things. And here's why, right? Let's talk about why, because I think it's also important that as the leader of the classroom, as the educator being the leader of the classroom, to show students and model for them that we're all teachers, we're all learners, but we all need to talk about how we're going to get along and learn in this room, right? So I think there was a mix of both in the beginning, especially learning how to make that community and cultivate that space for all students to learn, but also it definitely was a good time when kids did push a little bit, and we all had to talk about it as a community, because that's what we did.
Did you find that the troublemakers were often making trouble because they needed to be challenged more?
Sometimes that. Other times there may have been just ways that they needed to process their emotions, especially second graders, right? Because they have big feelings, right? There are things that, that might be going on in their body. They don't just know how to process that or how to express that with words. So it becomes like actions and behaviors. So oftentimes they're sitting down, what are you feeling right now? What's going on in your body? And then you would find out, well, this happened earlier and this person did that to me. And so now and even though I could sit there and say, well, that happened earlier. Why is it coming up now? But it was just the fact of sitting with them, listening and understanding their perspective. So then we could talk about, well, this is how we could respond. Here's one way we could do that would be more positive, right? And promote a better reaction and a path for you to learn, because that's why you're here. But yeah, so it was always a learning experience, always a learning opportunity. And it took me a while to get there. I wasn't there my first year of teaching. It took me a while to learn that and figure it out and practice teaching year after year to get to a place where I could stop, pause, listen, and then respond.
Now, is this something that you pursued of your own volition, or is this something that the actual education system that builds educators instilled in you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly think it came from the mentorship that I received. So the teaching program that I did, the Boston Teacher Residency, I had one amazing mentor who supported me in becoming a teacher. So you can consider it a student teacher role, but I think through this program it's more than a student teacher role because like we're in the thick of it. We're planning the lessons. We're teaching alongside the collaborating teacher who was my mentor teacher. And so just the way she modeled and taught me how to build a community with my students, I would oftentimes see her sit there with the student and listen to them and take the time to understand their perspective. So that was something I then took on and modeled in my first year of teaching. And then in my first year of teaching, I had another excellent mentor teacher who was able to support me as I cultivated my own class community and the necessary skills to best support my students and their families. Because that's, it's not just the child you also get the family who you have to work with. So I would say it was definitely the mentorship I received. That's always been key. And anything that I've jumped into is mentorship. So important.
Okay, at risk of sounding glib, and I don't mean to, I don't know, if this is too far, I'll cut it from the episode, but did I get it? I won the lottery, right? I woke up, I have this chin, I have this complexion, I'm a cisgendered guy, my voice isn't bad, right? Like, I get it. I fucking won. But those teachers didn't exist when I was a kid. And Desiree, I'm telling you, even though I grew up poor, my dad's side of the family was very wealthy, and I went to an expensive Catholic school when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then I went to a really good public high school when I was a young adult. Those teachers they just didn't exist to that degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because I think in the field of education, people are always learning. Things are changing, especially when you talk about mental health, right? That's a hot topic today. And I think teachers and educators in this space are learning more about how that affects children, how that affects their families, and how children show up in the classroom and in the schools because of what happens outside of school. So I think it makes sense to say not too many of them existed then, but I think people are coming around more to understanding how this works with that and how emotions affect learning and how your nature, but also your nurture and how you are socialized, how that also affects their learning. So I think over time, hopefully we do get more educators who are seeing that, and not even just educators, but parents in general, because parents are their child's first teacher. Before they get to any school, the parent is supposed to be there to make that connection of, life is learning. But it's a support of the whole family, especially if the parent doesn't already have that information.
What about the people who think that the state is trying to, and I know I'm getting into the realm of politics, but what about the people that think that the state is trying to usurp the role of the parent?
Obviously people are going to have their own perspectives, but I don't think that's the case, because if you take on the mindset that you are your child's first teacher, no matter what the state or the schools or whoever else is doing something different, as long as you are educating your child and you know that they're getting what they need, then that should be your first priority. Not, oh, I'm doing this at home, or I'm not doing this at home, but I'm sending them to school and the state is doing like that. That sounds blamey to me versus taking ownership and initiative of you being your child's first teacher. Yeah.
Well, when I did management seminars with GAMA, and I only did them for 1 year, but when I was doing them, I would tell managers, look, if your employees suck, ultimately it's your fault. If your kid's an asshole, that's your fault. It just is.
Yeah, I would say it's a community effort. Like I said, when I first started teaching, one thing I knew from the very beginning, I can't do my best job without the family support, because it's their job to reinforce the skills that, their children are doing with me, and vice versa. Like if they are doing a particular practice at home that will benefit their kid at school, like I always ask, what's one thing that you do well, that works well with you and your child at home that would be beneficial for me to know that I can implement at school? It's a partnership. And it's never something that just falls on the teacher or just falls on the parent. It has to go both ways. We're talking about a community, a village to raise a child, and a group of children that are supposed to be able to think critically and make decisions based on that critical thinking and not just take what somebody says and says, oh yeah, you know what, I agree, without doing their own research.
Depending on where we land with editing and my crappy open. But we're about 10 minutes in and we haven't talked about gaming. And I suspect that people haven't even noticed because you're so fascinating. But I also suspect that now that I've mentioned it, someone's like, hey, we didn't tune in to hear this brilliant woman talk about the education system and why she's an exemplar about what the system should be. We tuned in to talk about gaming. So when did you discover gaming as an extracurricular activity?
I mean, I think like I've always loved games, even as a child. It wasn't something where I was like, oh, I'm going to make up my own games. I never saw it as that, but I was like, I guess pretty typical. Like I did do the game system, maybe like, I don't know, between 10 and 12. We had a Sega Genesis and, you know, did that video gaming, you know, had the board games, the Shoot the Ladders, the Candyland, Monopoly. My sister and I used to play this Pretty Princess game where you gain the jewels and all kinds of games. And we loved Go Fish. You know, that's a classic. It's a basic thing.
Okay, so you can't see this, but behind my screen, right behind my camera, there's a big board because the intelligence community, well, let's call them torturers. They have this whole thing called the predictive index, and you can, well, okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So you know, if yes, then no, yes, no. So I'm just, well, I couldn't pick a chain because I was like, okay, video gamer, she's in this age group. Go Fish, no. Oh my God, because okay, again, if this is too far, but black don't crack. And I don't know how old, I don't know how old you are. Because you talked about Sega and I was like, okay, she's younger than me. You talked about Go Fish. I was like, okay, she's got grandkids. I'm like, what is going on here? So you've been gaming for a while.
Yes, I think games make for childhood. I don't know who. I would hope most people play games in their childhood because that's the point of being a kid is playing games. So yeah, definitely been gaming for a while. It was always just a fun thing to do. So yeah.
So did you ever do any tabletop role-playing game stuff like Dungeons and Dragons or any sort of like that thing?
No, I've never done those types of role-playing games. And I'm curious of how they work. I've only heard of them and like briefly saw like a quick clip, but never played them. Did you do extemporaneous speaking, mock trial, debate, theater? Were you into that stuff? Yes, definitely the musical type of person. In a few musicals in high school and in middle school. So like I started off as a musician, period, loved to sing. In fourth grade, I started, my first instrument was the trombone. So I played the trombone. And by eighth grade, I had to learn to play the baritone because I wanted to be in the marching band in high school. So that's my musical love there. And I love to sing. So yeah, musical theater, definitely a big part in my life. The Wiz is one of my favorite musicals simply because the first all-black cast in a musical and just the music that comes from there. Obviously, it's fascinating. Quincy Jones produced that whole piece. So it's definitely always been a love of mine. And so I'm not surprised that I've come to a place where I've created a music-based card game. But yeah, that's pretty much my background there.
I'm stunned that you never got into role-playing games only because there's a community in role-playing games called LARP or live action role play, right? Where you really adopt and dress like your character. It's a very, very immersive way to play the game and you would just be fantastic. But anyway, but also as an educator, it's a tangent, I know, but earlier in the interview when we were talking about teaching and the philosophies of teaching and working with the neurodivergent, I just thought as somebody who is professionally trained as a manager of people, but hobby-wise, a person who runs a table of games with alarming regularity, the skill set overlaps. But now, as an educator, And how do I get the people at the table involved more? How do I get the worker involved? There are secrets there. There's wisdom there that I didn't even consider, right? So now I really want to pick your brain, but we'll get back to gaming. So you were doing gaming for a long time. When did you discover the industry, the hobby industry, as far as like becoming a professional in doing sales? Was it prior to or after designing Dub This?
Yeah, so I would say it was prior to, a mix of both. So I actually had the idea 4 years ago. A lot of transitioning happened with trying to figure out, like, am I sticking with teaching? Like, what do I want to do next? I want to try something new. I have all these passions, all these things I love, and I just feel like going to the classroom, yes, I'm bringing myself, I'm bringing my musical energy, I'm bringing these things with me, but sometimes the school day just felt long, and I didn't feel like I was able to do all of the things I want to do here, and all of this. Like, for me, I always say my ultimate career is the thing where I could teach, I could do music, I could learn, I could laugh, I could do all those things at the same time. That's always what I'd say is like my top career. And I think it's just something I'm having to create for myself. So when I had the idea 4 years ago, I was too nervous. I definitely had some fears, so I didn't really go for it. I found, I was just Googling and saw that there was another Black woman who created a card game called Trading Races. And she was just really inspiring because she was not only got an article published in Essence magazine, which really drew me because I love that magazine. So that was like my first inspiration. And so the most I did was type up my prototype of Dub This before it even had the name Dub This, and typed up the prototype, printed it on cardstock, cut each card out by hand just to say, like, okay, here's something. Okay, that was in 2017. And then I just put it to the side because I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this can become something. But by this time last year, it just kept eating at me. And I'm like, it had to come out. Like, my spirit was telling me, God was telling me that this was the time. And not yet I did the not yet part. Never definitely was an option. I could not do it. Otherwise, I would have regretted it. That was not an option. So I sat down last February, went on Kickstarter.com, and section by section just started typing out my description. And in researching like all the parts that it takes to start a Kickstarter, and planned it out step by step, getting my a Gmail just specifically for the game, and looking up, okay, what is manufacturing? Like, what does that mean? And honestly, I was learning as I was going. Even though I did this plan in the beginning, there were still some things that I didn't realize was a thing until I was in the thick of it. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I got to learn more about that. And having to find people to teach me. And so by July, I was like, okay, I'm launching this Kickstarter. I didn't know it was going to happen. I had faith that it was all going to work out. But it was just amazing to see, like, people support me, people that I knew, family and friends, people that I didn't know. And, that kicked off the first print run of Dub This. But it's definitely been a journey. Another thing that I, again, knew was really important was finding a mentor. Because I had no idea about manufacturing cards. I didn't know how card games got into stores and on tables and, shipping. And I still don't know all of it, but I'm still learning as we go. And so that was the journey of kind of getting here.
Let me drill down into getting the game in stores. And the reason I ask that is that my background is primarily retail. So I did retail for a very long time in the St. Louis area. I worked for a couple different chains, yada, yada. The point is that I am unfamiliar with Dub This. And recently I've interviewed a couple people, Molly's F. By the time that this interview is out, Molly's will have already dropped. I just recently talked to a guy named Alex Yeager from Amigo Games, and we talked a lot about the non-hobby game market. And so when I'm doing research and I'm looking for your game, Dub This, and I'm checking my normal avenues where I shop as a gamer, I'm not finding Dub This. So as a consumer from listening to this episode, where can I find Dub This?
Yes. So right now, Dub This is just on my website. I'm working on different avenues as we speak. But my website is www.dubthisgame.com, and you can purchase directly from the website. So that's the current state. Unless you're in Boston and you happen to pop up to a game night that we're holding, and we have a game night at Trident Bookstore from 7 to 9 on February 26th. That's a Saturday. So if you're present then, you can buy it from Trident Bookstore, and they're also being sold in Trident Bookstore currently. So if you're in Boston.
Right on. So if you're in Boston, Trident Bookstore, by the time this episode drops, unfortunately, the 26th will have passed. But now, are you going to go to the GAMA Expo next month?
Yes, I will absolutely be there. I'm so excited. This will be my first big space and pitching Dub This to retailers. So I'm looking forward to, coming out of it with one, increased confidence, because as I continue to do this, my confidence boosts because I'm like, people really love my game. I love my game.
Where is your confidence going to go? I don't understand where, are you trying to reach the moon? What is...
Hey, I think it's something that will just keep me going, keep the business going, and anything. That's where it's going to go. Continued energy and effort into the business.
Oh my God. People are going to adore you. Well, now the reason I ask is the GAMA Expo is the place to go to meet other distributors, to meet other publishers. I mean, they've got so much, but if I understand correctly, you are one of the first cohort of GAMA's Horizon Fellowship. So could you explain to the audience what that is and kind of walk us through the process of how you applied and ended up ultimately being selected?
Yeah, so the Horizon Fellowship is the inaugural fellowship for the Gamer Manufacturers Association, I believe the full title. They wanted to launch a diversity initiative, and so they created a leadership team to select the fellows for the fellowship, and that consists of people who have created their own games, or maybe are retailers. And so we received mentoring, coaching sessions, and they launched it in July, and then they selected the fellows in September. So I still can't remember how I found out about it. It might have been through Instagram or some kind of social media way. But once I saw it, it was literally like the day after. I was like, I need a mentor. I need to find. And when I saw it, I said, I'm applying. I got to get into this program. So the process of applying, it was, you just had to fill out a form, talk about what are our goals for our business, where do we see it going in the next 3 years, why we need to be a part of the fellowship. So really explaining who we are, our business, our goals, our vision, and why we would benefit from it. So I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity. I couldn't have done all the things and made the progress that I have with the game without the fellowship. Just being able to have the mentorship, but also the coaching sessions for people who are in the industry and can answer basic questions like discussing sales tax, which is something I had to learn because I was just a consumer of things. I never figured I'd be on the other side. So really being able to get basic information about that, and then as large as accounting and who you need to be talking to early on so that your books are in order and when you're filing for taxes. And so all of the ins and outs that, also made it easier for me to have to focus less on the research so I can continue to put my energy and effort into the product. Yeah, so the fellowship has been amazing, and I look forward to them continuing this so other people can have the opportunity to benefit from the information and make the connections and network.
Anybody who is a professional, and I know that I'm a GAMA member, so, I definitely am biased in saying this, but I certainly have always felt when I was working in retail, now as a member of quote unquote media, I think that the membership has great value for people. And I've seen the organization evolve a lot. And they used to not do cool stuff like this that was actually helpful to people and to the industry. It was not, it was always good and it was always helpful, but it has grown a lot as an organization over the last few years for sure. But any which way. So what is your game? What's your thing that you like to play? So you had mentioned a variety of different games, cutting your teeth on console stuff, but really playing a broad variety of games with your family. What do you gravitate to? What do you really dig?
I honestly would say, and maybe it's a little biased because I had a music art game, but any games that allow me to sing and pull on my music knowledge, which actually, now that I think about it, those type of games, I don't feel like they existed when I was a kid. Like I could, put on my iPod or listen to my music or, put a CD in or the radio or anything like that. But I don't feel like there was like a game attached to that. So, I guess the closest to that would be like karaoke as a kid. But like that's like my space, the music space, games like that.
All right. Well, then let's talk about Dub This, because I went to dubthisgame.com and I watched the video and I scrolled through and I read about you and all of the usual cyber stalking that I do in addition to your Facebook page. But I would prefer to have the progenitor of the game explain to us how Dub This is played, because I am unfamiliar. I am not musically inclined. I have never been. Math and music are two areas where I really, really suffer. But I don't know what a musically inclined game is, and I don't think there's enough alcohol anymore for me to do karaoke. So how do we play Dub This?
Yeah, so I always like to pull it out because it makes it easier. So like, the zipper pouch with the deck of Dub This. And so what I love to tell people always, because, and this was the educator part in me, we always talk about, multiple entry points. And so people who don't feel like, oh, this game isn't for me, so that they don't feel like, oh, I can't play at all. So there are actually 3 levels to Dub This so that you get more time, you get more chances. So you have the beginner's level, started from the bottom. You have the medium level, which is the in the mix. And then you have the advanced level. It's levels to this. So with the started from the bottom, you get 1 minute to dub. And dub simply means mix and match any song. Whatever song pops into your mind. So nursery rhyme, commercial jingle, because some people are really into commercials and that like is their thing. And I didn't want to leave that out because those are songs too. Any song that pops into your head based on the words and the phrases on the card. So, for example, I always have a hard time picking which one because, I'm tied to all these cards. But if we had let's, right? The word is let's on the card. Whatever song pops into your head using this word.
It would be let's get physical. I want to get physical. See, I wanted to be, I'm a terrible singer, but one of my dreams was to be a lounge singer, right? Like me in a crushed velvet, like lavender suit, my bow tie undone. I've got, I've got my bourbon on the rocks. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, folks. Desiree, how are you? You're looking lovely this evening. So anyway, let's.
It's possible, Mike. You can totally do it. I think anybody's dreams are valid and definitely can happen. So long as you have the people to support you and the space to do it. So you could do it.
All right. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So let's get physical. Right.
Exactly. So where you just stop, that's also the exciting part of this, because you want to stop at a word that you think will be hard for the next person to pick up. So physical, I don't have a song with the word physical, at least off the top of my head. And if we're playing the in the mix level, 30 seconds. I would just have 30 seconds to start a new song with the word. That's the basics of the game. Um, and yeah, it's always interesting to see the songs that people come up with because, like what you said when you asked me about musicals, some people love musicals, and so the last game session we did, all the songs that the woman was singing were all for musicals, but that was her jam. And who can stop you when that's your jam? No one, right? And then the idea also is for people who are good at freestyling, because those people exist too, there's the option to fool them. And when you fool the other players, you can double your current points. And so it's a mix of all the different things that you can do. I love to tell people, if you have a specific artist you listen to, dig into that music catalog you have and use all of their songs. Because who knows their music better than you? Unless that person also loves that artist. So I think there's something here I know there's something here for everybody. And people just have to give it a try, give it a chance, and just relax and have a good time.
How does scoring work? Because here, and again, I go on tangents, right? But in my mind, like, I want to build a super team. Like, I want, I don't know, certainly I want maybe Dr. Dre, and I want Weird Al Yankovic, and I want Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I don't know, maybe, some douchey metal rocker like, I don't know, Steve Perry, right, from Aerosmith. I want to build like a super team, and then I want to combat other super teams, right? And we can do this on TV with Christina Aguilera and whomever as a judge show. Why are we not pitching TV shows together, Desiree?
Oh, well, you know what? That's a part of my big vision. I see this as a TV show. And when those new TV shows always pop up, I'm always like, this is going to have its own TV show. I see it. It's just a matter of time, right? Because it is that type of feel-good game that you could be a celebrity in play. You could be a family of people in play. I'll come back to that part, though, because I have some more to add there.
Sure.
But for scoring, every card is worth 2 points. And this is also included in the deck. So it's just a way that people can set up their score chart. So instead of me adding a score pad in there, this is like just an example, right? Because what happens is each card is worth 2 points. For the medium level, which I always play because it's a nice balance between advanced and beginner, you get 30 seconds to dub. So if you dub successfully, you earn 2 points. And if you dub where another player stops, you also earn 2 points. So each card, again, is 2 points. But the place where you can, the score, you can score strategically is there's a space to challenge. So if you think someone messed up the lyrics, they got something wrong, you can challenge them. And that's always a really intense part because people forget that if their challenge is right, they earn 2 points. What they get stuck on, if their challenge is wrong, the player they challenge can choose to double the points of the card and earn 4 points, or they can take all of the other team's points. And people always get hung up on that part because they're like, wait, but I thought, no, if you get it wrong, the team you challenge can say, you know what, because you challenged us, we're not going to be generous and take 4, we're going to take all of your points. So that always has a good mix of the competition and also just being strategic with if you're choosing to challenge somebody. So that's the basics of the sport.
I'm going to ask this in a dumb way, so this will get kind of meandery, but I guess your game has such broad appeal to a mass market audience. And I understand that the hobby market is really a great place to go. There are a lot of games that are very successful that are party style games that have less complicated rules, but provide for a very energized and exciting experience. But I mean, Target and mass market and Spencer's, I mean, that's the place to get to, right? So is the hobby industry just one avenue? Is it a stepping stone? Is it an additional area of conquest? Like, I want to take over both. I want to take over Poland and I want to take over France. You know what I mean?
Yes. Honestly, it's a start because before this, I had no clue where to go and what to do. So this is my introduction into what it means to, like I said, manufacture a game, to pitch a game, to connect with a retailer. Before this, I had no clue of the titles of publisher, retailer, manufacturing, production, distribute. That wasn't something I thought about. I was thinking about Common Core state standards and grade level tasks and productive struggle. That was where I was in my thinking and my daily work as an educator. So now it's kind of not combining those things, but some of those things still apply, right? There are those transferable skills that I've gotten as an educator. And now, yes, that it becomes a stepping stone, and also just building the networks and building relationships with people, because this game connects people. It builds those bridges, whether, I've had my grandmother play this game down to my youngest sister play this game. And so the age range is vast. And yeah, this is definitely just a building block, I think, to just continue to expand and learn more and eventually have it be really big, because I see that. Definitely.
Now, one of the things that we were talking about during the pre-interview, if you will, or frankly, it's probably better described as before I hit the record button. And we were talking about identity and diversity in gaming. And I don't know exactly where I want to go with this, because I have so many questions, and I don't want to be that white person that says, hey, black person, answer all my white questions about diversity, because one, it's fucking boring, and two, it's not your job. Right. But three, this is not where my interest lies. But the industry, right? The hobby as a whole. I'm sure you see it. I'm sure you've been to shows, and when you go to the GAMA Expo, you'll see exactly that. And there are far more women in the industry than there were, 20 years ago, for certain. But it's still a lot of, doughy white guys, right? And so I guess and this is a big question, but what do we do other than providing a platform and an opportunity for people to have a voice, right? What does the industry do to attract people? Because I don't know people who are actively saying you are unwelcome in my hobby right now. I'm old enough I grew up around those people, but I'm not friends with those people. I don't know them. Right. But still, it seems like there is a barrier. So what's the barrier? And I don't know how do you contribute, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, that's always a big question, because I do believe definitely in access and opportunity to those spaces, but I don't want it ever to feel like hard to word. Like, I don't want it to ever feel like we still can't, as a Black community, and I won't speak on like people of color, because I think that's two different things, and I consider myself a Black person in the Black community, and I think coming from that space, I think, again, access and opportunity are important, but what we don't want to do is make it feel as though we can't still cultivate our own lane in our own space. I think access and having the opportunity to say, hey, I do want to come to this particular event and I want to showcase the game, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think continuing to make that network in that space open so that people who are creating games within the Black community can then get that same kind of platform and that same kind of, resources and benefits as if they were a part of the larger hobby industry network. Because that's one thing I found too in getting into this, is like there are so many Black game creators who I would have never known had I not, got into this myself. And that's also that, and I'm very sure not many of them, if any of them, are a part of a GAMA, right? But from what I understand, GAMA is very much a part of that large hobby industry, have been in it for a long time. So if you're new and you're coming on the scene and you're like, I just have this cool idea, I want to make a game, I don't know if it's necessarily something you seek out to find that kind of network, especially if the people already don't look like you and you're already like, I'm already new to this. So trying to go uphill with being new and in a space where the representation isn't there, I think can be difficult. So I guess largely it is, again, continuing to open the space to create the access, the opportunity, and have start to have that representation, because we know any of us, depending on what you're trying to get involved in or what you want to see yourself in, if you don't see those people there, it's going to be really hard to feel comfortable enough to then get into that space. And even if you don't feel comfortable, but like, I want to get into this because I see there being meaning for me, and you still do it to maintain and stay in that same space, you need the support, and you need the support of people who look like you, or at least can identify in some way, or are truly there to support you and lift you up as they climb. Because that's what success is, no matter what you look like, is lifting people as you climb and everyone building together. So we all can win.
May I ask what may be a controversial question?
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Is there a stigma in the Black community that gaming is white and dorky?
I think it depends on who you ask. Because for me personally, I'll speak for myself. Like when you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, I said, okay, I was in marching band. So I know people who definitely played that game. But my marching band was largely white. There were a few Black people in it. So I could understand that perspective. And I think as a high school student, I definitely had that perspective. Although I was still friends with those people who were white, because we were all in the marching band together. So that was our main love together. But I never particularly got into those games because I did actually have the mindset of like, I don't know, maybe that is for white people. Like, that's just not something I do. So my personal perspective, yes, I had that mindset. But now, I mean, especially now that I've created my own game and I see that type of game more so and hear about role-playing games, I'm like, okay. And down the street, there's actually like a restaurant. It's called Tale of Tales, I think. And they have like this whole setup for tabletop games, and I'm pretty sure Dungeons and Dragons as well. So now I'm more open to it, to try it. But I would say the younger me was like, I don't know.
Well, and I've always wondered that. And again, this is not me trying to say, oh, look how cool and aware I am. But I live in North County, St. Louis, right? Which means I live in an area that is white and Black mostly. And I have, when I worked at the comic book shop, a lot of our customers were Black, and I game with a few Black guys. I game with a Black guy to this day. So I have a little bit of diversity at my table. I have a woman, I have a person of color, blah, blah, blah. But my point is that it felt like that when we talked about Dungeons and Dragons or we talked about board games, it was like that was white stuff. Right. And it was maybe my ignorance, obviously, but there was some level where I felt that was a perception, that there was a barrier there. Like if you came over and wanted to talk about D&D, that your buddies might make fun of you because you were hanging out with white guys, not because you were hanging out with nerds playing D&D. So I don't know if that was a real thing or if I just created that in my head.
And I would add to that, too. I think that's what goes back to representation, right? Because within families, right, unless your parents were into comics and games, role-playing games, and games that were different from the traditional Uno and Monopoly and Life and all of those games, then you don't really have that representation of what it looks like. Whereas, like, my husband, his parents weren't gamers, but he was into comics. I don't know if that was just, my husband's a Black man, so I don't know if that's, him being a boy. He was a boy and liked comics, or also Pokemon cards were big, and, Digimon and some anime for him. So I think, it's possible, but you have to have other people who are your age and your community who also like it. And I think that has to do with representation.
Right.
I think so.
And I think that again, this is just my individual perspective. I can't speak for all marginally handsome middle-aged white men, but I'm kidding about the marginally. I know I'm not that handsome, but I guess for us, it never felt like, I don't know, just like everybody I knew growing up who did this stuff just happened to be just like me. Right. It just is the way that it was. And no one was actively exclusionary. It just, like you said, it's about exposure. Right. So that's why I think it's wonderful to, I don't know, have an opportunity to talk about it, right? Because I think that in most cases, at least my side of the microphone, we just don't want to take a wrong step, right? Like I just don't want to put my foot in my mouth and insult people. But by the same token, I don't want to, I don't know, I'm going to say something dumb. So I don't know. I feel like that I want to make sure that this space is for everybody, but I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it has to be organic, but I think it also needs to be actively researching and open to like, wait, there are other Black game creators. What? It's easily searchable. At least I found like they exist, like we exist. And I think maybe, I don't know if they already have a lane at GAMA of somebody who actively looks for non-white game creators, because maybe that's a start to see, okay, who are the people that are out there? And I think the Rising Fellowship is kind of starting that. I think that's the beginnings of it. So it's good to see that something's happening. And I think even if people are thinking about, okay, what can we do differently to show, to actually put action and show that we are open and willing to change and progress. And that's a step in the right direction.
Just because I don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, have you experienced yourself resistance for being Black, for being a woman, for both?
So far in the game industry, you're saying, as a game creator? No, thankfully. Thankfully, so far I have not. Not to say that I won't, but so far I have not. It's been very welcoming. And again, I think that is because the access I have to the fellowship. That's my introduction to the industry, right? I didn't have to do it alone and feel like it's not like I just signed up for GAMA and said, I'm going to go to Reno and be a part of this convention. I wouldn't have known about GAMA had it not been for the fellowship. So having someone to walk alongside us and support us, people who have gone to this convention for years, people who have been in the industry for years, that makes all the difference in me having the confidence to say, I can pitch alongside people who come to this conference every year and have come for the past 30 years. Even though it's my first year, I have one game, and I may not know all of the terminology of the industry, but I'm here, and I'm going to do my best. And I'm appreciating the opportunity.
Sure.
So,
Are you kidding? You are bright. You're vivacious. You're fun. You know, and anybody who listens to the show knows that I feel very, very sincerely about this. It's about selling you. It just is, right? And you're gonna have no problem selling you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, no, and I'll tell you the same thing I told Molly. I told Molly during the pre-interview, I said, look, any compliment I give you, I swear it's not disingenuous. I just, I throw them out there.
It doesn't feel that way, so that's great.
Yeah, no, they're like kittens, man. I'm just giving that shit away. Just take them. But anyway, what's next after Dub This? Because I know that you've got one game, you're working on getting that game into distribution, into stores, hopefully fingers crossed into a bigger market, but you don't strike me as someone who is going to rest on their laurels. You strike me as somebody who has set one project in motion, and now that it's building momentum and rolling its way down the hill, you're building the next thing that you're on the opposite side of the hill, trudgingly, lumberingly rolling it up to the top.
Yes. Well, I think I always, if ever I'm thinking small, or if ever I think like, I think I'll stop here, I have to think of the name of my company, Dream Ultra Big. Like, I can't just dream big. I have to dream like ultra big. So there are things still coming. Definitely expansion packs of Dub This. It's my hope, obviously the teacher in me, the educator in me will never go like that. Even when I'm teaching how to play Dub This, I find myself like, so what questions do we have? And I just give wait time, which is an educator thing to do. So I definitely plan to return to my educator roots and do a Dub This Kids edition, because I have already gotten feedback of some educators I know playing with their students, those who are older, like teaching high school. And I could picture one for the elementary group because that's my group. So definitely expansion packs. to build literacy skills and learning and reading. And, one of the first early reading skills is print awareness, which is learning how to read left to right. That's something you have to teach, right? So a kids edition could support that skill. So that's one type of expansion pack. Definitely multilingual. I just have big dreams of this going really far, and that is my next step. Definitely working on the Amazon piece because I want to sell not just on my website. So I definitely have some things in the works, and one day I'll turn my TV and I'll see the Douglas logo.
What about the education market, right? I mean, you have stores. There is a subculture where teachers have stores where they go for teaching supplies and things like that. And as you didn't even allude to, you said gearing the game toward education. What kind of opportunities does someone like you have with Dub This in the education arena? Because just like there are game conventions, I'm sure there are cons that you go to that are teaching conventions where the teachers are hobnobbing during the day and getting socially lubricated with booze at night. But how big is that market? Because that also seems like a tremendous amount of untapped potential.
Yeah. Honestly, I still have yet to do the research on it myself. So it is definitely, there's a space for it. There's a lane for it. It's something I'm planning to do, but I wouldn't know where to start. So similar to having a mentor and having support in, getting into the industry, I would definitely need support in figuring out how do you, sell quality products, because people sell educators a lot of things that are not quality, and in turn they get used in our schools and aren't very helpful. So how do I connect myself and align myself with quality products that are being delivered for instructional purposes for our students and connect to those people? I'm not sure of that network yet, but I'm sure I'll come across those people at some point.
Do you have any game designs that are not Dub This related that you're working on? Anything in a journal or a notebook somewhere, something you've been spitballing?
No, actually, I think I'm so in tune with Dub This that another game, I don't know. I can't even quite. No, I don't. Maybe it'll come to me after I feel like this has gotten off the ground more. Maybe it'll hit me. But other than that, no, this is my one and only game right now.
It sounds like, though, you have such, if you'll excuse the expression, fertile soil, right? You've got so much there and so many different avenues that you can take it, considering that you're just now working on getting into stores and then the other avenues. Yeah, I think that is, that's something that sounds like it probably has legs. My only advice is for the retail store. Like if you're going to be in a standard brick and mortar shop that sells comics and games or just games, there's so much product out there. There's so much available. People have to associate you with the game, right? The retailer's got to know Desiree, has to believe in Desiree, but also if the consumer is not by themselves, but if somebody working the shop's busy and can't answer their questions, or like a lot of the consumers, people are socially awkward and they don't necessarily want someone approaching them. The game box has to sell itself, right? The game has to put itself in the consumer's hands. They've got to know everything about it on that box, right? Because there's just so much noise to filter through. And I'm not a game designer, right? I don't know how to do it. I'm just a former retailer, can tell you what I saw work and what I saw didn't.
Absolutely.
But it's hard. And going to the stores, and I know it's not financially viable for a lot of people, but being able to go to shops, introduce yourself, introduce the game, and just pressing flesh, even though we live in a digital age, it makes such a difference.
Yeah. That's definitely one thing I want to do more of in these next coming months, is to physically take myself to stores and say, hey, here's my card game, so let me pitch it to you. I think that in person definitely makes a big difference. And I agree with the packaging. And that was especially with my Kickstarter and, being so new, I didn't want to quite pick a color yet. I knew I had a logo idea. And so that's why I was like, let me just keep this basic, keep it white. And so when I pick a color, that will really pop. And the logo will be more recognizable. And then we can transition in that way. But I agree with you. That's one thing I've been really excited to do is work on the branding and, making that box pop out. One thing I noticed too, so when I did get my games to the Trident bookstore, a lot of the boxes actually all have color, and mine is the only white box. So it actually pops out in that way.
You read my mind. I was literally looked over my shoulder at this bookshelf, and I had this strip of books right here that are all white amongst all that color. And I thought, well, the white actually does a job, right? I mean, it does a job, especially if it's like a cool, kitschy logo against that stark white. I think that it says something.
Yep. So.
The last thing I really want to get into then, Desiree, if it's cool, is when I was on your website and I watched the video about how to play the game. And not that I want to talk about another interview, but I had Molly on recently and we talked about her game, Jewish Card Revoked. And I was like, Molly, I'm not Jewish, right? Is it okay for me to play this game? Anyway, people can go listen to the episode. But when I watched the video about Dub This, even though to me, it seems like thematically the game's for everybody, I didn't really know who is the game for, because everybody in the video, and obviously I'm not butthurt about it, but everybody in the video looks like you, right? Mm-hmm. So who exactly is the game for?
Yes. And I think that's a great question, because this is what the conversations are about today, right? Representation, right? So if you look at the commercials and you're like, is that for me? Everybody in the commercial's white. I don't know if I should use that. It's the flip side, right? You saw my video, you're like, everybody in this video is black. Is that for me? And my answer is yes. Obviously, I mean, backstory of that was my birthday celebration. My family is a black family, so those are going to be the people there playing the game. But very much so, the game is for anyone and everyone who loves music. We all come to the table with our different music interests, our different tastes. And I love to say that those music interests and ideas always have a story. And that's been the one thing I've loved by sharing this game, is learning more about people. And we may have more of a similar story than you think we do, because we listen to the same type of music. Or you may have said a song and I'm like, wow, I didn't think you would know that song, or vice versa, right? So this game is for the music you listen to, it's the music I listen to, and we bring it to the table and we mix and match those songs so that we can make those social connections, make joy, spread joy, and make lasting memories. So Dub This is for anyone who loves music.
As someone who swims in the very niche area of the hobby space, you're too big for us. You're too big. You're too much energy. We're a small step on your way to something larger, right? Like this, for me, this is the pinnacle. I'm getting to talk to other people who are in the gaming space, but you have a thing. It's wild.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Desiree, I really do wish you the best. But before we go, I want to make sure, at least for the time being, before you're the #1 game on Amazon, where can people get Dub This currently?
Yes, so you can order Dub This, purchase Dub This at www.dubthisgame.com. That is my website. Go there, order 1 deck, 2 decks, as many as you'd like. And then you can also follow us on Instagram. We are always trying to build our social following at Dub This Game.
If a retailer is interested, do you have case lots or some sort of discount for bulk orders so people can do resale?
Yes, that is definitely something I can work with you on for sure. Definitely open to that for sure. Yeah.
I'll tell you, when you go to GTS, people are going to ask you that, and there are going to be shrewd retailers who are going to want to buy directly from you. I would have been one of those guys, right? I would have been like, Desiree, I've got 4 stores, I've got 20 employees. This is what we do in sales annually. I'm going to put your game in 4 stores, but I'm not paying this for it, right? Like I would have been that. I would have been that asshole.
Right. I was just talking with my mentor about this yesterday, right? To determine the numbers, right? So maybe offline after this, we can talk briefly about that, because I really want to make sure I go with a solid plan.
Sure.
Not to cut myself too short, but for sure to make sure there's some kind of discount.
It is tough. Well, so what if somebody is interested in your mentorship in terms of education or discussing with you your journey as a game designer creator?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a great question. And I would love that. I love mentorship. I think it's great for everybody. I guess you could reach me at my email, dubthisgame@gmail.com. That's the direct way to get to me.
I love the branding, because I love even though if I click on the website, right, your email tag, right, if I click on your website, it takes me to dubthisgame.com. Yeah, which I thought was absolutely great. Well, Desiree, honestly, you are fantastic. I cannot guarantee that I'm going to see you at the GAMA Expo next month, but if I do, I will definitely introduce myself in person. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Is there anything else that I can plug or do for you? Because I really want to.
Whoever you can connect me to, or whoever you would speak to that you instantly feel that connection of me, Dub This, please drop my name, drop the game, whenever you can make that connection. That would be awesome.
Well, Desiree Vaughn, thank you so much for your time. Folks, this has been Why We Game. Audio editing by me, Brodor. Music by 99 Instrumentals. At this point, my Patreon is up, so give me money, please.